First of all, that was my nostalgia. The only way to observe and comment on this game objectively is by trying to ignore the glittering stream of rainbows and bunnies that our brains have affixed to Duke Nukem over the past 15 years. These old memories have been festering into absurd expectations over this long wait. The game is in the unfortunate position of being destined to displease almost everyone. It won't play like the original Duke Nukem 3D, and it won't be able to compete graphically with recent big-name shooters, right? So did anyone really expect a good game here? Hopefully, most of us were prepared for underwhelming graphics and gameplay elements that were cannibalized from a decade of FPSs. But as a Duke Nukem 3D fan, the one thing I was most afraid of for Duke Nukem Forever was that it would forget itself, like Doom 3 did. To forget that it is supposed to be a camp, absurd, chauvinistic, silly, stupid, fun shooter with no pretensions to realism and no consideration for the feelings of the fairer sex. If I was a robot ticking off a checklist of requirements for DNF to be a good shooter by today's standards, it would likely be mediocre at best, with graphics that look like something from 2007 or 8, a mishmash of antiquated gameplay elements, and no depth to its story. But transcending that is Duke's pervasive sense of titillating fun that undermines this checklist and draws big knobs and boobies all over it. Timothy, could you summarize the game for us, please?
Okay. You begin the game with Duke playing an in-game game of the final boss fight from Duke 3D, and then travel from Duke's impressive abode to a talk show that Duke has been invited to, all the while hearing news that the aliens have returned. You then go to the Duke cave to keep an eye on the alien situation, where Duke is briefed by the army commander and the president, who both suggest that Duke stay out of the diplomatic negotiations. Unfortunately, the aliens make their move against Duke, so he must defend himself.
This is probably the longest interactive introduction to a shooter.
The journey that ensues takes Duke through his casino, into the city, into the alien hive where the hot chicks are being taken and corrupted, into the Duke Dome Stadium to fight a three-titted beast. Knocked unconscious from that fight, for a curious mid-game break from the action, Duke dreams about his nightclub, Titty City, to gamble, play pinball and air hockey, and then wakes up to find that his rescue has crashed into the Duke Burger Tower. Then Duke is flown to the center of the action, the Hoover Dam, and left to drive the rest of the way in a monster truck, passing the Wild West and an abandoned mine on his way. Duke arrives at the dam, drives a forklift truck, gets shrunk, goes underwater, and has a final boss fight.
Thank you, Timothy. Bye-bye. The heart of Duke Nukem 3D was in its interactive objects and one-liners, and there are heaps of them here. Using objects makes Duke feel better about himself, which increases his maximum health. The entertaining nature and usefulness of these objects reintroduces the point of exploration in levels, robbed from most recent first-person shooters, and while it conforms to modern health bar systems, at least it laughs at them. Added to this are some reasonably inventive puzzles, varied levels, half a dozen classically designed boss fights, and shooting gameplay largely free from tactical decision-making. If you can remain tolerant of Duke's potentially offensive persona, then it's generally quite fun. Some people are angered by the fact that Duke has a 2-weapon carry limit, and can only sprint short distances. This filled me with trepidation when I started. Then I found out that Duke can sprint for 9 seconds and only takes him 5 seconds to rest for another 9-second sprint. That's a far better rate than you're offered in most games. As for the carry limit, it does not burden the player with tactical decision making a la Bulletstorm, because Duke Nukem Forever kindly provides appropriate weapons and infinite ammo crates whenever you're going to need them. It takes very little time for the brain to switch off from these considerations and enjoy the weapons you're given. And they are enjoyable. The shotgun and Ripper feel as shotguns and machine guns should, the shrink ray is now area effect, the freeze ray is now a short-range power tool with recharging energy-based ammunition, and the Devastator feels as hefty and powerful as it used to. Added to the old arsenal is the railgun and 3 alien laser weapons, a pistol-equivalent laser, a rapid-fire blaster, and the Enforcer gun, a blaster that homes. The variety of gameplay types and colourful levels keeps most bits feeling new enough, but some of the levels are tedious. They can involve frequent deaths through unforeseen falling objects, and the long loading times can make this particularly frustrating. Some of the levels are unattractive and or repetitive, and the ending was a little disappointing, too abrupt. But the overall balance is towards the fun side of things. Despite its dated graphics and arguably outmoded gameplay, the aesthetics and feel of the game is true to Duke Nukem, and that, as far as I was concerned, was the most important hurdle to clear. It may have been the only hurdle it cleared well, but it sets the game apart, if maybe not for the right reasons in many people's views. The bottom line is that I can't escape the feeling that I had more fun with Duke Nukem Forever than I did with Bulletstorm, even though the latter would have been much more successful on my robotic checklist. I award Duke Nukem Forever a pair of tits. That's what it wants, I suspect.